Well, today we're going to visit the Museum of the U.S. Air Force at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, which is on the outskirts of Dayton, Ohio. And this is probably the premier aircraft museum in the world. It's the largest by far. And here's basically the layout. We've got early years, which is pre-World War II. Then we have World War II, Korean War, Southeast Asia, Cold War. And then outside we have an air park. And then across the tarmac we got research and development and presidential aircraft. Right now you need to take a shuttle to get over there. But they're building a new hangar, a fourth one, which will be here on this end in the center of construction now, that will eventually house those aircraft. So that'll be nice at some point in the future, a couple years or a year and a half. Everything will be on one location. Well, in addition to aircraft, they have a lot of other displays with artifacts. And this is one of the better ones, Bob Hope display, and I'll show you on the other side of it. And his displays include a lot of footage, as well as the jumpsuits he used for some of his performances, and even his famous golf club. And this is one of the jackets he wore.
I hear the cockroaches are really tough. They think DDT is a new vitamin, huh? I had an idea we were going to a strange base when the pilot threw away the map and took out a Ouija board.
This, of course, is not the aircraft that flew at Kitty Hawk. That's in the Smithsonian. This is a 1909 flyer, which is the first one they sold in the military. And we have another example here of a little bit later one. And there's some artifacts, basically, of the Wrights here, because of course Dayton was the birthplace of the Wright brothers and has the title of the birthplace of aviation. Of course, the Wrights started out with bicycles, and this is one of their bicycles that they used to build, a woman's bike. And this wind tunnel here was designed by Orville Wright, and it was located at his engine shop in Dayton. Of course, it ended up here at the museum. And even World War I has got a good representation here of aircraft. Just about all the major players in World War I are here. I don't really know a lot of the ones, but one upside down over there, of course, is a Fokker triplane. And this aircraft is a SPAD 7, which is probably one of the more famous aircraft that the Americans flew. And we have the Newport 28, which I believe the French flew. And then Sopwith Camel, which I think was a favorite of the English. And a Halberstadt CL4. And then a SPAD 13, which is bigger and heavier and better, I guess. And we have here a Fokker D7. And here's an old bomber. It's kind of hard to believe they used to just grab a bomb and throw it over the side. And here we have another bomber, a Martin. It's hard to believe that these guys just flew these things right out in the open. I mean, those cockpits are right out in the open. The only thing between them and the wind was a pair of goggles. Pretty nice display of World War I era aircraft. They do have some between the war aircraft, but not nearly as much, as that's probably the one place where this is lacking in the museum, is those aircraft, but there's still a few. Kind of an interesting paint job on this one. Now they do also have the Memphis Belle here somewhere on premises. That the Memphis Belle was on loan to the city of Memphis, where they left it outside and it pretty much got deteriorated. And the Air Force actually kept possession of it, so they confiscated it and brought it here, and they're restoring it. So when the restoration is done, I don't know if this is going to be on display here or somewhere else, but I don't think it's going back to Memphis because they didn't treat it very well. And again, here are some of the dioramas at the museum. This one's called A Flight Training Mishap, which I suppose there were numerous. And here's another diorama depicting the scramble at the airfield during the Battle of Britain, I imagine, during the Second World War. This being a Hawker Hurricane. And here, one of the hangars, we have the World War II gallery. And there's a lot of history here, which is kind of nice. This thing not only just shows the airplanes, but also has a little bit of history behind all the different airplanes and things. And also has some of the more famous aircraft as well. Again, this is probably the largest museum and most renowned, but also they get some aircraft on loan even from the Smithsonian from time to time, so you never know what you'll see. One of the more famous parts of the collection is the boxcar, which, if you don't know, is the B-29 that dropped the second atomic bomb on Nagasaki in the Second World War. Of course, Enola Gay was the first one, which I believe was in the Smithsonian. Now in the German aircraft area, we've got a Focke-Wulf FW-190, and we have here Messerschmitt ME-262, which actually I think is on loan from more or less permanently from the Smithsonian. And I think that's a GU-88 Junkers, or Junkers, however you want to pronounce it. As well as we have over here a BF-109 or ME-109, whatever you want to call it. Again, I think this may be on loan from the Smithsonian, but nevertheless, still some fairly rare aircraft. Over here, a P-51 Mustang. This B-17 is Shoo Shoo Baby. And one of the first time I took my kids to the museum, they were 12 years old or so, they were running around. You could always tell where they were in the museum because they were Shoo Shoo Baby all around. There was like 4 of them, two of my boys and 2 of our neighbors' boys. And over here we actually have a V1 and a V2. Yeah, this B-24 is self-explanatory. As well, we've got looks like a Spitfire there, de Havilland Mosquito, P-38, P-26, C-47. I mean, these are some rare aircraft here. Some are maybe perhaps the only surviving aircraft that were in the Second World War. So you're going to see some pretty rare aircraft in here if you visit. These are a couple of Aerocobras. Here's a P-39, way it looked like in World War II. Here's a P-63. And the interesting thing is this particular one, the reason it's painted orange, is actually used as a target aircraft for target practice. And the bombers actually shot rubber bullets at it that just bounced off the thing. I can't imagine flying down these things with, somebody shooting at you, rubber bullets or not. And then over here we have a B-25 depicted as it might be during Doolittle's raid. And of course, the actual Doolittle's raid aircraft all crashed, shot down or whatever. I mean, none of them are left. One of the more famous aircraft, just because of its nose art, is P-40 here. So this museum basically contains, even though they may be in different examples, all of the major aircraft in the Second World War, except for maybe not all the naval aircraft. And in fact, here's a Zero here. And in addition to aircraft, we got a lot of artifacts. And here's an example of 2 of the aces, Major McGuire and Major Bond. Flight jackets and some of their other personal belongings. Probably were donated by their family. This supposedly is the rarest artifact at the Air Force Museum, and it's only one of the very few known to be in existence still, according to the plaque here. And this is, of course, one of the camp prisoner uniforms for concentration camp, the Jews that were in a concentration camp. And this is worn by Moritz Baumstein at Buchenwald. And this part of the museum is the Aviation Hall of Fame, and the who's who in aviation is going to have their face on the wall here. So that's kind of interesting if you want to have a little history. Now this is the second hangar, and we've got basically, I believe, Korean and Vietnam Wars predominantly. Got a B-52 over here, and around here we've got several other large aircraft. So we'll take a quick look here at what we got in this gallery. Kind of interesting here, you can kind of see the stress on the skin of this B-52. It's amazing these things even flew. And we got the Vietnam era. This was my era when I was in the service. And then we have F-100 here, F-105. No, that's the Voodoo, F-101. Now, my guard unit started out when I first got there. They were just getting rid of these RB-57s. Well, this is actually not an RB-57. This is a B-57. The RB-57 was a reconnaissance version. And they went to these O2As for it was forward air control mission. And they swapped out about the time that I got out to these A-37s. These are actually Cessna twin-engine jet. And then after I got out, they went to A-10s. And now they're lost their A-10s and kind of in limbo right now is what's going to happen with a local guard unit that I was a member of. And this MiG-17 was given to U.S. Air Force Museum by Egypt. So they get their aircraft from all over the place. Now here's F-105. Speaking of Memphis Belle, this says Memphis Belle 2. F-105 Thunder Chief, which is one of the mainstays of the Vietnam War, called Lead Sled or Thunder Thud. Those are two of the names that they were given to it by the pilots and aircrew. And here's the MiG-21, which is basically an engine with wings. Not much more than that. Chuck de Bellevue, that's his flight uniform. And here's probably one of the most iconic jet aircraft of the Vietnam War, F-4. And there's F-111, which was the first swept-wing aircraft that we had. It looks pretty small when you compare it to B-52, the tail section that almost touches the ceiling here. That thing is just huge. Yeah, here's the Vietnam era diorama with a F-105 Wild Weasel. And the Wild Weasels were ECM, electronic countermeasures, so they help make the SAMs not hit our aircraft, basically. Yeah, here's a bomb bay of a B-52. You can just about imagine Slim Pickens as Major Kong riding a atomic bomb down in that movie Dr. Strangelove. Here's the Korean War exhibit showing MiG Alley. We got a F-86 here against its adversary, a MiG-15. Now this MiG-15, if you recall history, was a surprise to the United States, and so for a sum of I don't know how many dollars, we were able to persuade a North Korean pilot to defect with his MiG-15, and after we got it, they flew it to Wright-Patterson here in Ohio for tests, and it still remains here. This is the very one that the North Korean pilot defected with. Now there's also a B-29 fuselage that they have cut open that you can actually walk through to the other end and see what it's like inside, how cramped it is really. Well, in this hangar we got a couple drones here. There's one here, and here's another one, as well as the F-22. Alright, next stop is the Cold War Gallery. Yeah, they have a lot of dioramas here, which kind of gives you a little more of a feeling of what was going on back in Cold War. That's kind of a scary notion. DEFCON 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Puts things into perspective. Yeah, this is the Cold War Gallery, the third hangar. And we got a B-29 here. Lots of big aircraft in this one. So we'll kind of point out some highlights as we go up through. I tell you, this B-29 looks to be as big as the B-52, although it probably isn't. But it ain't a small thing. It is pretty good size. And if I remember from the last time we were here, we can go up to the second floor, and I'll try to do that to give an overhead view of the aircraft here, because it's pretty impressive what's in here. And there's some rare aircraft like this twin Mustang. I think it's a P-80 or P-82, something like that. We'll have to go find out what it is. Okay, it's an F-82, and some 270 were made, and they were all-weather, the first all-weather interceptors, and during the Korean War. Now this is an F-84, but what's interesting is this hook here. This is a highly experimental aircraft, and its design was to hook up to the bottom of a B-29 so that in flight, if they had a threat, somebody could get in there and take the aircraft, launch from the B-29 mothership and back. Well, of course, it didn't work out very well. Now, there are a bunch of experimental aircraft over in another hangar, which time does not permit us to do today. And those eventually will be brought over to the new hangar that's built. And you have everything from a X-3, I mean all the X aircraft are over there, as well as some of the presidential retired aircraft. And here's a rare B-58 Hustler, which is a supersonic nuclear attack bomber. And you get an idea, that's actually a fuel tank on the bottom there. Get an idea of how much fuel this puppy took to take off and do its mission. This B-36 had 6 engines. I think they're radios, I'm not sure. But 336 spark plugs. Plus it had 2 engines on each side on the outside. So 6 radial engines and 4 jet engines. Well, here we have both the B-2 in the foreground and a B-1 in the background. So we got the B-1 and B-2 here, as well as a Blackbird. And there's also a YF-12, the fighter version of the Blackbird, over in the experimental aircraft area. Well, this B-2 is so stealthy it's hard even to get a good photograph of it, but there it is. And here we have a MiG-29, which again, just shows you the quality of this museum. Now, the Air Force Museum tried to get one of the space shuttles when they were retired, but for political reasons, they weren't successful, which is unfortunate because most of them are sitting outside deteriorating, and of course it would be inside in a climate-controlled area here if they would have got one. But nevertheless, they did get a mock-up, so we're going to go through that anyway. Well, here's a panoramic view of the Cold War hangar.
Because of the spacesuits, the helmet's not swiveling.
Well, thanks to the current political agenda, we no longer have any kind of a space mission. The shuttle was canceled, of course, and then the Orion that was in development, that was supposed to replace the shuttle, was canceled. So I think it's a little nearsighted on the part of our politicians. It's pretty sad as it is. And here's an actual piece of the Berlin Wall. located between Potsdamer Strasse and Checkpoint Charlie in western Berlin. Well, we have an F-15 here, F-4 there, F-101, F-106, all the fighters that Air Force is famous for. And here's Apollo 15 command module called Endeavour. Now this is a little more of an ominous and sombering part of the display. Here we have nuclear missiles. And yeah, it's a little bit scary here, just even looking at these things. These are MIRVs, which are multiple warheads. And you got everything from the Minuteman series to Dayton here. But these ensured our freedom. So I guess it's a dirty little secret, but we're still free because of it. So now we have a little more of a panoramic view of this third and final hangar. And they're actually under construction right now. You probably can't hear it in your in this video, but beyond this building, they're actually constructing a fourth hangar, supposedly the same size as this one, where they're going to put all the presidential aircraft that they have, as well as the experimental aircraft, such as the XB-70, X-1, X-3, all those cool aircraft that you only have seen pictures. So that's going to be done sometime in 2016. So this is going to warrant another trip back to see it. Very good collection of aviation related merchandise. Well, there is no overnight camping at the museum. It is at least RV parking friendly, so you can park your RV at the museum. However, their lot for RVs is kind of a ways away, so you may have maybe a quarter-mile walk to get to the front gate of the museum.